Hi, welcome back to another Capacity TV video here at sunny Fort Lauderdale for Metro Connect 2025. I'm Ben Wodecki, and this time I'm joined by Bill from Zayo Group. How's it going, Bill?
Great, how you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to talk about AI. We'd be remiss if we weren't talking about it. It's growing at a breakneck speed. How is it impacting what you guys are doing at Zayo?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So I think AI, there's really three main ways it's impacting the network.
Sure.
The first, and this is where we're seeing the first demand, is people that are deploying huge data centers to do AI training. So a large fiber order historically for long haul would be 12 or 24 fibers. About a year ago, we started seeing orders for 144, even up to 432 fibers. So just a gargantuan increase in the capacity. So that's one. That's for AI training. The second, we're starting to see demand for to connect data center to data centers in localized metros. And the deployment is looking like, data centers that have 30 to 50 megawatts of capacity, a couple in a metro region, and those data centers need to be within about 50 miles away from the major metropolitan area. So that's use case two, and you need big fibers to be able to connect those. Those are even like 1,000 plus fibers to connect those different data centers. That's primarily for inference, but also for some training as well. And the third big aspect is actually connecting to the enterprises, so getting to the actual end users. We're seeing a lot more demand. Enterprise is starting to plan for that demand, but that's sort of the next thing to come. So big connecting training, seeing the front edge of inference at the metro area, and talking about enterprises updating their networks to be AI ready.
I mean, Bill, you guys are looking to meet that demand with some pretty big stuff going on. Yeah. 5,000 new fiber route miles to support this. Why are you guys making this investment? And, is it purely just to meet this demand? Walk us through a little bit what's going on here.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, it was 12 to 18 months that we saw, what historic demand that had been, 8, 10, 12 fibers going up to 144. So when we do our long-term planning, we had planned on putting enough capacity for, 10, 15 years of use. But if the amount of use goes up by an order of magnitude, 10, it's more than an order of magnitude increase in demand. So we weren't going to have enough capacity. So we're doing those routes to meet the new level of capacity that's going to be needed. But in order to do that level of investment, you have to get a lot more confidence.
Sure.
So we did all the way back to the core fundamentals of how durable. What's going to be basically the magnitude and the duration of this AI demand. And I think the best sort of triangulation that we've been able to do is if you look at the chip fab reservations from TSMC, so the chips are got to come from somewhere.
Sure.
And TSMC actually announces who has reserved their fabs. So the amount of chips that are going to be coming out, and those chips have to live somewhere. So if you translate the chip fab reservations down to power needs, basically what's the aggregate level of demand that's going to be there. And given that power constraint is really the scarce resource now, if you look at where there's available power, you can get an idea of where those data centers are going to go, and then you can figure out what's the level of fiber you need to connect them. So we did deep research looked at the chip fab reservations. We know where the power is going to be available. We know where the fibers are going to be needed. We know roughly how many fibers there are going to be. So we're investing with confidence.
Fantastic. Can I ask then, obviously you've looked into that in quite some detail, but what are the requirements for the AI impacting that network? Because there's got to be some changes, some impacts, and also long haul fiber as well, because there's probably some impact there as well.
Yeah, so there are some changes. If you're going to be investing, $5-10 billion in a data center campus for training, the level of redundancy that you want, in the old days, you'd have, dual diversity coming out of a typical data center. And then to triversity when you're connecting to cloud, these locations are looking for quadversity. So, 4 different unique routes that are, physically diverse from each other going out of these. So that level of diversity is something that the industry hasn't seen yet. And then, of course, just the magnitude of demand, the amount of fibers that are going to be needed, means that we're building a lot bigger routes, but it also means that the exhaust is going to happen a lot faster.
Fantastic. So there's a lot of expansion going on, but I'm assuming that there are some challenges that network providers are facing with all this change. How are you guys hoping to kind of address and meet those challenges?
Yeah, I would say that, Zayo has been really, in the past 10, during the dot-com boom, there were a lot of telcos that laid a ton of fiber, and basically the industry has been feeding off that fiber for the past 20 years. Zayo is really the only nationwide operator who's been building long haul fiber in the past 10 to 15 years. So we've stubbed our toe a ton, but we've learned a lot from it. But the biggest hurdle right now is permitting. So I think that if you're doing I've worked in the data center industry for 10 years as well. But when you're permitting a data center, you're working with one municipality.
Sure.
When you're permitting a 1,000-mile long haul route, it is private landowners, public landowners. The level of permitting and to be able to get the route going is by far the biggest hurdle. So we're engaged even with the Department of Commerce at the state level, at the municipal level. It is a big undertaking to get that permitting down.
And Bill, there's a lot of change happening very rapidly, very quickly. In the long term, how do you see kind of this shift to AI, shift in networks, impacting networks? What's your kind of outlook? And also, where does Zayo kind of tie into that as well?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about the, of those three buckets, the long haul impacting training, the metro impacting inferencing, and then making the enterprises ready. We think the design patterns for cloud are roughly for impacting the enterprise network. So we think that when enterprises are going to be using AI, it will use a lot of those same design patterns. But it'll be basically cloud on steroids.
Wow.
It will be the amount of bandwidth you need is going to be a lot bigger. The data that you're passing is the most secure data that you have. So the amount of security is going to be big, and it's going to be much more performant. Mm-hmm. So if you look at the design patterns from cloud, which are basically a distributed, hybrid, multi-cloud kind of enterprise environment, you'll have those same demands, but it'll be a lot more bandwidth, a lot more secure, and a lot more performant, which means you can't just use the internet. You got to have private connectivity.
Bill, there's a lot of changes coming, and I look forward to sitting down with you again at some point soon to kind of examine and see where the market's going again. Thank you so much for your time.
Great. Thank you.
And thank you for watching as well. Please keep in touch with us throughout Metro Connect and all the content on Capacity News and Capacity TV. Thank you so much for your time.